Recap for Monday, May 12th. Looking at the estimated daily livestock slaughter under federal inspection. Estimated cattle receipts at 99,000. That's 10,000 less than last week, 16,000 less than a year ago. Estimated hog receipts for Monday, 466,000, 16,000 less than last week, and 2,000 more than a year ago. Monday's Missouri stocker formula consists of 9,617 head with a weighted average weight of 536.33 pounds, price value of $389.18, a nickel lower than Friday. Looking at some of your stickout sales in the auction barns for Monday, Joplin Regional Stockyards expecting about 9,000 head for Monday. Some stickout sales there. 141 head of 800-pound steers at $298.50. 111 head of 801-pound steers at $298.75. 130 head of 830-pound heifers at $275.25, 95 head of 710-pound heifers at $317. At the China livestock market, 78 head of 650-pound heifers at $325. At the Cowway Livestock Center in Kingdom City, 120 head of 886-pound steers at $298, 83 head of 669-pound steers at $348.50, 86 head of 636-pound heifers, $337.75. 86 head of 595-pound heifers at $351. Looking at the box beef cutout values, choice cuts valued at $348.14 up $217. Select cuts closed at $335.23 up $406. That's based off of 115 total loads, 73 loads of choice, 16 of select, 6 loads of trimmings, 20 loads of grinds. That choice select spread at $12.91. Looking at the Morning National Slaughter Cattle Review from Monday, looking at Friday trade, negotiated cash trade in the Southern Plains was limited on good demand. Nebraska and the Western Corn Belt negotiated cash trade was light on good demand with few live purchases at 228. However, too few for a market test. The last tested market in the Texas Panhandle was Wednesday with live at 219. In Kansas, the last tested market was Tuesday last week from 218 to 220. In Nebraska on Thursday, live purchases at 225 to 228 with the dress mostly at 355. Last live tested market in the Western Corn Belt was Thursday from 225 to 228 with a few dress purchases at 355. Looking at the Missouri cash grain bids paid to producers for Monday, the daily trend, soybeans 19 to 20 higher, wheat 7 lower, corn 2 lower. Corn bids in St. Louis, 464, Kansas City 418 to 453, soybeans in St. Louis at 1082, Kansas City 1051 to 1096. Wheat bids in St. Louis 505 to 510, Kansas City at 495. Looking at your closing futures on the Chicago Board of Trade, corn contracts May 440 1/4 down 1 1/4, July 448 down 1 3/4, September closed 3 1/2 higher, 432 3/4. Soybeans May 1066 up 22 cents, July 1071 1/4 up 19 1/2, and August 1068 1/4 up 21 cents. Wheat contracts May 499 down 6 1/2, July 515 1/4 down 6 1/2, and September closed at 529 3/4 down 6 3/4. On the Mercantile Exchange, live cattle June closed at 216.82 up 215, August 211.60 up 202, and October 208.45 up 150. Feeder cattle contracts May 303.10 up 512, August 306.37 up 607, September 305.10 up 607. Lean hogs May 90.72 up 35 cents, June 98.30 up 72, and July 102.47 up 205. Looking at the WASDE report that was released on Monday, May 12th, the 25-26 U.S. wheat outlook is for increased supplies, modestly higher domestic use, reduced exports, and higher stocks. Supplies projected up 2% from the 24-25 year as higher beginning stocks offset lower production. All wheat production projected at 1.9 billion bushels, down 3% from a year ago on lower harvested acreages. All wheat yield projected at 51.6 bushels per acre, up 0.4 bushels from a year ago. Corn outlook for the U.S. is for record supplies and total use and higher ending stocks. Corn crop is projected at 15.8 billion bushels, up 6% from a year ago on increased both area and yield. planted area is estimated at 95.3 million acres, if realized, would be the highest in over a decade. Yield projection of 181 bushels per acre based on weather-adjusted trend, assuming normal planting progress and summer growing season weather. With smaller beginning stalks partially offsetting the increase in production, total corn supplies forecasted at 17.3 billion bushels. Looking at soybeans, U.S. soybean outlook: slightly lower supplies, higher crush, reduced exports, and lower ending stocks compared to a year ago. Soybean crop is projected lower at 4.34 billion bushels with trend yield and lower area, with higher beginning stocks but lower imports and production. Soybean supplies down less than 1% from a year ago. Total U.S. oilseed production is projected at 128.5 million tons, up 0.1 million. U.S. soybean crush for 25-26 is projected at 2.49 billion bushels, up 70 million from a year ago, with higher soybean meal disappearance and exports. Looking at the Missouri Crop Progress Report from Monday, May 12th, there were 4.9 days suitable for field work for the week ending May 11th. Top soil moisture supply was rated 1%, very short, 8% short, 77% adequate, 14% surplus. Subsoil moisture supply was rated 1%, very short, 7% short, 82% adequate, 10% surplus. Corn planted reached 68% compared to the 5-year average of 71%. Corn emergence reached 43% compared to the 5-year average of 43%. Soybeans planted reached 40% compared to the 5-year average of just 29%. Soybeans merged reached 17% compared to the 5-year average of 14%. Winter wheat headed reached 76% compared to the 5-year average of 63%. Winter wheat condition was rated 4% poor, 18% fair, 66% good, and 12% excellent. That's a look at your market recap for Monday, May 12th. With the Missouri Department of Agriculture, this is Caroline Carter. Have a great day.